Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 7th edition of the Responsible Regions Dialogue. This is a monthly dialogue that we organize in the framework of the project TeRRItoria that combines every month the point of view of the discussion of regional economic practitioners, development agencies mainly, and academics. And we always have the same useful and very productive dialogue that we are going to continue. It's incredible that we have 7 editions and we will continue at least till the end of the year. We had today, I always think it's one of the best, but we had today one important topic for any expert on economic development is what is the content of the economic development. So it's not only GDP growth. What is behind that is how we distribute the wealth, and as well, and this is important, how to implement that, how we go beyond the economic development and how to implement that with the connection and coordination with the different stakeholders that we have in the territories. You know that every time we say that the development agencies should lead the economic development, but how we do that, how we combine the different actors. And as in any dialogue, we are open to all your comments. This time we want to try to make it shorter because we have 3 excellent speakers, but the 3 of them has difficulties to go with us 1 hour and a half. So whenever they have to leave, and we will continue the dialogue and we will try to be in 1 hour. However, if you have things to say, don't hesitate to continue with us. So as in the previous edition, we will have a keynote speaker. In this case is Stephen Ingledew. Stephen Ingledew is the director of the Scottish Enterprise. Scottish Enterprise is the biggest development agency in Europe with more than 1,000 employees. And he's as well the CEO, the executive chair of the cluster for fintechs in Scotland. And as well, he's part of the British expert group on innovation. And later, as I say you in the previous dialogue, we will have 2 discussions. One from as well a regional practitioner. It will be Harry Palvainen. Is as well the top level manager of Business Joensuu. I will present you later, but he has as well a good knowledge about how to combine different actors in a territory. And then the academic will be represented by Manfred Spiesberger. Sorry, Manfred, if I didn't say well your family name. He's a researcher from the Centre for Social Innovation, and a very good expert in many aspects, but one which is crucial for us today is about the impact and on the innovation transition, in the economic transition, and as well how to govern this type of initiative, because he has a good specialization in regional innovation strategies. Because I know that we start slowly, but then the dialogue accelerates. We are going to initiate our dialogue and our conversation with Stephen Ingledew. Thank you very much again for being with us. Stephen, the word is yours.
Thank you, and thank you, Esteban. Let me just take a moment to share my screen, if I may. Is that come with you now?
Yes, we see that, but you have to maximize.
Oh, there we go. Have I maximized? Great, thank you. Anyway, thank you, Esteban, for that warm welcome. Thank you to my colleagues at Scottish Enterprise, Sarah Maria, for arranging me to be with you. It's a real privilege to be with you this afternoon, and I hope to speak for about 10-15 minutes with some examples about how we're shaping a future economy for Scotland. But to do that, to share with you some examples, because we'd like to hear your thoughts. We feel we can always learn, we can make better, and what you'll be doing in a similar way about using innovation and collaboration to develop a better economy and society for everybody is much better if we do that together across boundaries, across borders. And it's a very exciting time. It's been a very challenging time, of course, for all communities, all economies over this past 15 months. But out of this is an opportunity to reshape a different and a better economy for all of us and society. So that's the background, and I'm delighted to share that with you. Let me just, the way I've approached this and to share with you is just a very simple approach in terms of why is this shaping the economy so important? Yes, it's about jobs and green recovery, but there's much more. What is it we're focusing on? And then probably the two most important things I want to bring out is how are we doing it as examples, and who's involved. Because certain people and organizations will take a lead, and it's important when they take the lead that actually bring others with them, that this is very much a team effort. So how and who as examples that then deliver the outcomes of economic growth, and the mission that we have from a Scottish enterprise point of view about creating jobs, but good jobs, and jobs for a green recovery as we report it. We have a little saying in Scotland that we cannot predict the future, but we can help shape it. But when shaping that future, we need to look forward, and driving a car, you look through the front windscreen. It's important to drive forward, though, not always looking in the rearview mirror about what you're leaving behind, because what is behind isn't necessarily what's ahead. So the front windscreen needs to be your dominating vision rather than always looking backwards. And that's important as you shape the future economy. Some things we've had in the past will need to be left behind and moved on. And that's what shaping the new economy is all about. So I'll cover these areas and I'll get into the examples with you. And then I very much welcome your thoughts or questions on this. So first of all, the why. Why shaping this future economy? Yes, about jobs, but not just any jobs, new jobs, different types of jobs, good jobs that pay fair, good wage, and green jobs that contribute towards addressing the climate challenge, net zero. But alongside that, therefore, delivering something that actually allows the net zero aspect to be built into the commitments and adoption of innovation by big enterprises and new enterprises. And then from a Scotland point of view, ensuring that actually this approach to shaping the economy is across all of Scotland. It's not just concentrated in the capital of Edinburgh or the major cities. It's across every aspect in embracing a new economy. And the documents that are on the left-hand side there are the overarching Scottish Government approach to the development of Scotland as an economy. And then alongside that, building Scotland's future is about the 3-year journey that we're on. And then just coming out is our 1-year plan at Scottish Enterprise, setting out the actions we're taking and how we want to do that, working with partners across Scotland. So those policies act as our guiding light in determining our why, and our why is focused on these 3 areas. Of course, there are other elements of why, but our why is also about being globally connected. It's about being resilient, about building an economy that's about people's well-being as well. But that's the main areas about why we're doing this in shaping a new economy. So the next question is, though, so what are we doing? And again, economic policy is helping shape that what. And we have 4 big areas of what I call the what. These are not industries, these are big economic themes. Similar, I imagine, across Europe. So on the left-hand side, the digital and data, accelerating that adoption of the use of digital to improve economic outcomes and create new enterprises with a digital economy and a technology ecosystem that changes with a different way in which businesses operate. I'll come back to that later. Secondly, the role of people's health. Very much in my mind in this last 15 months because of COVID, but actually health and the opportunities with health, also opportunities from an economic point of view. It's not just about a social aspect, it's about an economic opportunity to create new ways in which health and care are delivered, particularly again using technology. Thirdly, around manufacturing and how we change our approaches to manufacturing for a new economy, and whether that's changing existing industries like construction or creating new manufacturing like space and satellites, provide big opportunities and new opportunities to manufacture new ways of production and infrastructure. And then, of course, fourthly, net zero climate, developing that net zero economy and that transition, which we'll come on and touch to. So that's the what. That's what we're looking to do. And it will be similar, I imagine, across Europe. The important thing there is how. How are you going to actually embrace this economic environment of a new paradigm, a new design, and actually bring it alive? And I've pulled out 6 hows, if I may call that, 6 levers of economic development. These are not the only 6. And also the 6 should not be seen in isolation. They are interconnected. They bring together. But what I would like to do over the next few minutes, just give you an example in each that really highlights why these in Scotland are important economic levers of how we drive a future economy and how then we deliver our outcome of better jobs, good jobs, green jobs, net zero, and being inclusive across all of our communities in Scotland. So let me move on to that first example. Oh, but before I do so, I should say, what's important about the how is who as well. And who is really important in terms of building that future economy and ensuring that it's inclusive. It is about role of government and public agencies. There's a crucial role for big enterprises, big global organizations alongside small innovative enterprises. But also important that universities and academia and innovation centres and the clusters are all part of this collective approach. And very importantly, it's really important from our point of view, involve civil society, citizens in the innovation and the shaping of the future economy. The best innovation happens where everybody is involved and citizens are part and participating in the innovation, as opposed to being isolated and others feeling they know what's best. Inclusive approach, team-based approach, breaking down the boundaries between different types of organizations to create a new dynamic. And we call it a melting pot of different people and different skills. The diversity is crucial here in the how. So alongside the who, this is what we're driving in Scotland to shape that future economy. So now I'll move on to a few examples I wanted to share. So my first example is that we're taking those four big economic themes and developing what we refer to as national programs. These are areas where, as an economic agency, we're focusing resources and intervention and actions to kind of act as a catalyst or to pump into an injection of activity. On the left-hand side, the greater adoption of digital across businesses. I'll come back to that in a moment as a further example. I mentioned health. Health is a big opportunity of using new technologies in a way that technology can improve the way, for example, we care for people in their homes, or the way in which medicine is prescribed to individuals when they are unwell. So changing that relationship of the way that people receive health and care in the future by new technologies is what's being developed there. Under advanced in terms of manufacturing space, significant opportunity in using satellites as an opportunity to give rise to new data that allows new approaches to the way you understand the environment, the way you understand business, and the way you deliver products. Future medicines is life sciences, again, very strong in other parts of Europe as well. And on the climate side, a number of interventions around low carbon vehicles, reducing the heat in buildings through, for example, heat pumps, and the use of different types of energies such as hydrogen. These programs are systematic, organized, and intervening not just as an agency, but with larger enterprises, small enterprises, academia, coalescing. And these programs are managed as one major program because they overlap. What happens in the digital scale-up, level-up is also relevant to what happens in Scotland in space, to what happens with decarbonising heat. So they're not seen as individual initiatives, they're seen as a program of collection of initiatives together. And that's helping us have a more strategic approach to actually adopting the opportunities around those four big themes. The second example then brings out the aspect around the digital and data economy. And an important piece of work that was done last year that should now be implemented is where we identify why digital and technology businesses were not growing as much as they could. What was holding them back? And we identified particularly an issue around startups. Yes, they could start up, but moving from startup to scale up and larger scale up was becoming a barrier, eventually onto what's referred to as unicorn. So how do we actually help this stage at startup? And what was identified here is a program overseen by Scottish Government and Scottish Enterprise, but engaging industry to deliver new initiatives in terms of education, for example, treating computer science on the same level as mathematics in schools, helping university students become entrepreneurs, and opening up the number of people who became entrepreneurs, not just left to the usual people, but making it much more diverse, more women entrepreneurs, more people, women entrepreneurs from ethnic backgrounds. Infrastructure is creating tech scalers, we call those tech hubs, to provide an environment to support these businesses, have a home to start with and grow and develop. Market Square is an environment to bring them together, building on, for example, we've taken Finland, the success of Slush, and Ecosystem, a fund that allows communities and activities to be funded to help them kickstart. And again, then on funding, opportunities really for both startup and scale up funding. So this is a program of initiatives, all as one, not in isolation, managed by Scottish Enterprise as one piece to be taken into the marketplace to address this area of intervention of helping startups move to the next level of scaling by good people, good funding, and good infrastructure. My third example then goes into actually where the development of these new areas of the economy, new clusters. And we have a terrific example in our city of Glasgow around Glasgow City Innovation District, which has been created, led by the University of Strathclyde, our most progressive and technological advanced university in Scotland, probably in the UK, with its Technology Innovation Centre, with some significant participants by innovation centres, large enterprises like Pfizer and other big organisations, and smaller enterprises all come together and cluster around opportunities around fintech, health tech, quantum, data with informatics, space and communications. The benefit of these clusters is by being cohabiting, they can learn from each other. They're inclusive, they're open, and it's generating an innovation laboratory in a district that gives rise to new ideas for big enterprises like Rolls-Royce, AstraZeneca, but also creating new enterprises in Scotland to work with those big enterprises, working with the University of Strathclyde, and again, working with citizens as well. Based in the city centre, hugely exciting. And if you ever come to Scotland, please come to Glasgow. Please come to this innovation, because it's a living laboratory of how to do innovation around clusters. And it is very exciting. Of course, though, there are bigger industries that need to transition and change. And I've got two examples I wanted to highlight here. On the right-hand side is the development of the Michelin Scotland Innovation Park. Michelin are famous for tyres, big factory in Dundee, but a combination of intervention and partnership by government, private sector, academia recognised actually to invest in this environment, to use the assets of this environment that they had, to reinvent it into a park that would be about place, that would be about using the skills there, bringing in new skills, building new supply chains, and encouraging new enterprises to set up in an environment which was around innovation, focused particularly on net zero, focused particularly on the areas of mobility in a greener environment. So going from a crisis situation of a factory shutting down and significant number of job losses, recreating as an innovation park, which is much more open, more inclusive, and shaped for the future. The other example is different. It's about the construction industry, the building world, all aspects. And Construction Scotland have their own innovation centre, which is geared about bringing together the participation of industry, academia, and public. But their initiatives on, and they call it Built for Zero, by creating the buildings for a net zero society and economy, recognizing the importance that buildings have to play, whether it's through heat, the way that they're constructed, the way that people's health are impacted by buildings, and the use of digital and data, can create different types of buildings over time that actually not only support a net zero economy, but help people to live better, actually use our resources in a more efficient way, but also then embrace the digital age in terms of how we live personally, but also in our working lives. And they're hugely exciting. We're very proud about the initiative being driven forward by the Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, an industry that's not always seen as innovative maybe, but this is very much leading the way in how to execute innovation in collaboration. And my fifth example, and I'm coming to a close here, 2 more to go, is again slightly different in how you bring together on the left-hand side a broad range of financial and global organizations, plus the government, plus the regulator, in the use of data, financial data, to create a laboratory, which has now been established as the Global Open Finance Centre of Excellence, the use of data as a data utility to generate new innovations, new enterprises, create an economic observatory, address social issues around financial crime, financial exclusion, but also bring in the role of ethics and regulation in how data is used in people's lives, personal lives or business lives. And this Centre of Excellence won the funding from UK government in summer of last year. It's based at the University of Edinburgh, and this building here, which is very grand, but is important really as an environment that's open to bring these collaborative organisations together to share data in an open way, in a safe way, very safe way, and a trusted way to drive new innovations. We see data as the new oil, and this is the oil refinery that brings the oil out of the ground, but then how to apply it to change people's lives the better, and also to change the way that businesses operate using data. This is our Open Finance Centre of Excellence. And then finally, on that FinTech theme, very proud about what FinTech Scotland's achieved since we started just over 3 years ago, but very proud that we're part of the European-wide cluster of FinTech hubs across the continent. This is hugely powerful, not just because we learn from each other, but it provides opportunities for the FinTech entrepreneurs in Scotland to come to Europe and the European FinTechs to innovate in Scotland. And a recent initiative with a major bank where we invited European FinTechs into Scotland to help the innovation with a major bank called Lloyds is a good example of that happened recently. And we were delighted that as part of the EU's European Secretariat for Cluster Accreditation recognised FinTech Scotland as the first FinTech cluster in UK to be given the official accreditation. And that's because of the how we operate and who we operate with. This is an important sort of channel and allows us to be very dynamic, but also opens up new areas of innovation going forward. So in short, they're my very 6 areas. Of course, I've gone through those very quickly. Happy to take questions. There's a lot more detail that sits behind, but conscious of time, I wanted to lead by sort of saying a quote from one of my heroes, who is Joe Strummer from The Clash. He said, when I was at the age in the 70s, the future is unwritten. And that's the point about the future economy. It's unwritten. It's for us to shape it. It's for us to write it. And if we don't, it will be done to us. So it's in our hands, and that's better done, but it's done through people and people who come together. So thank you again, Esteban, for the opportunity, and I'll finish there.
Thank you, Stephen, for the excellent presentation, and as well, very inspiring. We knew that in advance that we are going to be like that. Thank you very much. I don't see any question in the chat, as I forgot to tell you the rules, the house rules. So you could write question in the chat, and I will give you the word, because this is a meeting and it's not a conference. When waiting that they make some questions, and then later we will go to the 2 panelists, and they will provide you observation, and then you will answer, and then we will have at the end an open debate for anything, not only related to your experience, but whatever anybody wants to say. So I would like to take profit of your experience as CEO of FinTech Cluster, because we always say that the government should lead and have provide a vision and the framework, and then others should come. And money is something that is always very clear. So you don't speak by speaking. So you see the numbers, and there, combining your experience in a Scottish enterprise that is clearly leading the economic development, and your vision as FinTech manager, how are the better mechanisms, or do you have any experience on doing that? So having the vision and then bringing all resources that cannot be done by the Scottish government by themselves. It's
a great question. There's 2 answers to it. First of all, the first answer is, the approach to talk is, we thought big. We wanted to be a major FinTech cluster. We wanted to be, we said top 5 in the world. Now it's difficult when you've got China, New York. So we said, let's think big, but let's act small. So we're focusing on particular areas, not all aspects of it, just particular areas like open finance. And that allowed us to get moving. And once you get the action and the examples, it brings it alive, and more people then want to join in, number 1. Number 2 is the participants. I was fortunate that I started off with 4 major participants, 2 big banks, HSBC, Lloyds, 1 university, Edinburgh, and the government, Scottish Enterprise, Scottish Government. They initially backed, they took the strategic bet. They thought, let's give it a go. Let's do this for 2 years, see if it works. Here we are, 3.5 years. We've gone from 4 to 28 global players. JP Morgan, Barclays, BT, IBM, 3 universities. And so for that, we've got more engagement, but the public contribution, which was, say, 1/3 in our costs, has now gone to, say, about 10%. So in a way, how to kickstart a cluster, government helped to push it with those other 3. And now on evidence and examples and delivery, it can build the cluster from there.
Thank you very much, Stephen. We have a question from Nikos. If you want, Nikos, maybe you could switch on the camera and say that, because I know that you are not shy at all. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to thank you, Steve and Jurada, for organizing this. This is amazing. It's a little bit too much. I have to say I like the poster behind you very much. I'm also a little bit intimidated by all this activity. It's huge. So the question is, how do you communicate that to the people, like to the, you know, to the public, to the citizens? How do you take that into account?
Yes, two short answers. So it's a really important question, Nikos. So important. I mentioned civil society and citizen groups. One of the things we did at the start, we set up a citizen group panel, innovation panel, made up of those groups who are representing the voices of those often left behind from an age point of view, homeless, those in debt, mental health people who work. So the different organisations brought them around a table and said, tell us what the problems are for the people. And then bringing the innovators in to sort of say, right, how do we apply new innovation, new technology to address these problems? So having a citizen panel, which still goes today, of bringing together innovators and big companies with the voice of real people and real people with real problems, it means you can have both an economic impact, new businesses develop, but a social impact in people's lives. The second answer is by being very collaborative, open, bringing in regional councils and their roles as to their agenda they have. And many councils in Scotland, in the UK, have limited money, very difficult. So they can't do everything. And sometimes the role of innovators is actually to help them deliver the services better using data or technology than they can do. So that helps them become more efficient. So involving the councils, involving citizen or the local public body is a way to bring them into the innovation to deliver better services.
Thank you very much. If I may, a follow-up question, if we can do it. I'm really interested in your experience about, you know, talking and discussing and bringing initially these people, these representatives of marginalized group people together. How easy was to you know, to talk to them, to find a common language, let's say?
I think from our point of view, from a personal point of view, the reason I came into financial services 40 years ago is because I wanted to make things better for people when they dealt with money. So it's always been, there's a problem there. The financial world has not always been good to people. Doesn't always deliver the best. So actually focus in by looking at the problems, because where there's a problem, there's an opportunity for a new solution. So the way to bring those groups in is to be empathy with the challenges that they have and to listen and understand. And out of problems become new innovations, new businesses, new areas of innovation. And we've seen this during the COVID pandemic, new areas of people's vulnerabilities or challenges they've had. And we found that's given rise to new businesses being created because the entrepreneurs see the problem and think, I can do that better using new technology. So focusing on the problem, first of all, not the technology, not the product, not the business as it is, but the problem, and work back from that. So we call it a design-led, a human design-led approach.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen. The topic is very relevant for responsible research and innovation that we are talking today. So thank you very much because you align very well the speech. Next question from Ildiko.
Thank you very much, Esteban, and thank you very much, Steve, for this very interesting presentation. And I'm following up on the question of Nikos, in fact, the two questions. And first of all, compliments for this very efficient citizen engagement in your processes, because that's a very significant representation of social responsibility. And yes, as Esteban says, this is very important for us in this ambient of responsible research and innovation. I just would like to ask you how you actually evaluate the success of your work here. So, because you do a lot for citizens, you even make all these efforts in engaging them in all these processes, but when do you arrive to the conclusion that your processes are actually successful and you reach your ultimate goals?
Yeah, it's a great question. We toy with this really. So we have different metrics in a way. I think there's two ways really. At small level, we can see the impact of certain innovative businesses improving people's lives. whether it's around financial matters or whether it's addressing net zero challenges or whether it's in terms of how healthcare is delivered. So you can see examples and it's collective. That then translates in those businesses creating jobs, and it translates in businesses growing and more businesses growing. So the number of businesses, the number of jobs is the outcome in terms of economic. It's difficult to measure all the social because when you're a cluster organization, you're just overarching umbrella. You're not necessarily, what you do isn't, the results aren't always down to you. They're down to a whole mixture of different participants. So it's very difficult sometimes to measure the overall economic outcome. So that's why we measure much more in terms of our activity and the examples of the activity and the participation, with a view then that some of that will work. And if you bring in more people into that activity and more examples, then it becomes self-fulfilling and grows from there. So it's more about the inputs and the participation rather than the outputs. You could say that more businesses, more jobs are outputs, economic. The social one is much more difficult, and in a way that's more measured by government, and we're not government in that way. So it's a good question. I haven't got a perfect answer, but that's how we address it at the moment.
But it's a real answer, so thank you very much. Is that one. So nobody has a perfect system to do that, and it's the challenge. Thank you very much. I don't know if you have more comment or question, or do we pass to the panelists? Okay, so when we are looking for panelists for this interesting presentation, we thought that Harry Palvainen was the best one inside of our other community. I'm going to explain you why. Harry Palvainen is the CEO, the Chief Executive Manager of Business Joensuu, which was an entity created in 2018 by a merge of different stakeholders. And then there in North Karelia, they have a lot of experience on working with other different stakeholders and combining everybody in order to have a clear and aligned policies for economic development. That's why we invite Harry to give his views and his opinion about what he has heard and how he could think about this type of things. Harry, the word is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esteban. Hello, everybody. It's Harry. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I don't have any presentation and kind of try to use the time efficiently. And as Esteban said, that we have started the Regional Development Agency here in 2019. So we have been 2.5 years in this mode. We had earlier companies, Science Park and Regional Development Agencies, which were merged together. So it's a combination of good experiences from the history, and then we have done quite a lot of new things during these 2.5 years, what we have now been in this new mode. And it was interesting to listen Stephen's presentation, and somehow I thought that I raised 2-3 topics, and one thing what we have learned in our experience to get everybody together, and I mean everybody, to get the R&D organizations, the research organizations, universities, and companies, the business organization together. And one of the important things is focus. So that, for example, we have 4 focus, you could say business areas, you could say clusters, you could say competence areas, but those are 4 core areas which we communicate and where we focus our operations. So that was the starting point, and it was important to get all of those actors, different organizations, from the strategic point of view, to stand behind these focus areas, so that everybody has a different role, but the roles are joined under these 4 teams. These teams are kind of, we have a bioeconomy, we have a modern industry, we have a photonics, which is growing area, and then we have ICT digitalization. And these are the four clusters where we are operating. So getting together strategically behind these, making it visible, communicating it was the starting point, and the strategic combination and strategic connection there. Then what Stephen was also using this kind of strategic programs, and that is something that with us, with this our ecosystem, it has been working well, that under these 4 focus areas, we have strategic programs. And it's pretty simple that there are programs where the participants have roles from their strategy, their interest. We have joint targets, and then we build services on these programs. And that is the kind of tool, that is the process which makes these actors to work together towards the joint targets. And then what was one thing on Stephen's presentation, you had there this startups and scale-ups, and we have a similar kind of process where all these actors are focusing on to create the startups, support the startups to the next phases. And one thing what we did see as a challenge was that from where to get the startups, how to get new companies to start businesses on these 4 focus areas. And then there are kind of joint initiatives, for example, on research to business, so that we do joint program with, so that there is existing businesses joining together, University of Applied Science, and then also the regional development company, which is us. And the starting point there on research to business is that already in the early phase of the research projects, there is aim to create the startups, so that it's already early in the process. And then we have got some new the university, and then we have the tools for the next phases, so that when the startup is founded, it gets funding. We have regional funds, investment funds, so we are able to invest to these startups. And then we have services, we have growth coaching, so that the startup is taken to the next level. We have internationalization coaching, which is called Go Global, so that the startup is helped with experienced people from these participants to go to the abroad and export the idea and take the market. And we have started, for example, to help that, we have an international buyer economy accelerator program, which is, there are several countries, several actors on this accelerator program. So we get the research initiatives, startups from there on these focus areas, 4 focus areas. We put it on this accelerator, bioeconomy accelerator, and have growth coaching and different services to help, and funding, also the investment possibility to get the funding, which is also including the national ministries, that we have the national ministry financing for these investment funds to support the startups to grow. You mentioned also the SLAS, which I was happy that you mentioned the SLAS event in Finland, and that's a one. It's really good. It's as you probably are aware, it's globally unique event, and we are joining SLAS with our services and our funding, investment funds, and that's one source of startup ideas and startups to this pipe what I'm describing here. So it's about kind of from looking from here and from our experience, having the focus, clear focus, so that all the actors can join the focus. There is a strategic link on the focus for all the actors, and then there is a process, which in our case is the strategic programs, which are aiming to get from research to new business to startups, and then we have tools to take the startups further. those are the points I thought that I'd bring on this discussion.
Thank you very much, Harry. Considering that Stephen Ingledew has to leave, and I'm going to ask you a question, the same question that Nikos made to Stephen, is about the citizen engagement, how you engage the civil society. And this is very relevant because my impression, my vision from outside is that anything you do in regions in Finland goes well. It's like throwing seeds to a fertile land, but it's because the land is there, it's well prepared. There is a society with, as you said, with a clear focus, with all the instruments, and probably, and I think what is different from there to other regions that I know, and I immediately answer myself, citizen participation, citizen engagement. The people are there and they consider not only the short term, but the long term, the vision of the society, the interest, the common interest. How, in all the things that you have explained to us, how you engage them in your activities, in your development agency? This is my question.
It's a really, really good question, and even if it might seem to be easy, it's not an easy one. But I believe that it starts from this that you select. When I say that select a focus, it means that people can relate to this focus. They can see that there is education, they can see that there are jobs, they can see that there are companies, they can see it as they can relate in their daily life to this. And one thing is, of course, that it's also about the kind of economy. So that when you see that that's good for our regional economy, you understand, you want to be part of it, that hey, this is good for our society. And one thing which is really, really important is it's really straightforward and simple thing, and it's kind of obvious but easy to forget, is the communication, to make it, just to make it visible, like for example in social media, very practical thing, that you communicate, and you communicate especially the success stories, that where you have been successful, you give examples that this was what we did, this was the aim, and this is the benefit for the, when it's a benefit for the city and region, it's benefit for the people.
Thank you very much. The other discussion or the other opinion that we are going to have comes from Manfred Spitzberger. Manfred is a researcher from the Centrum für Social Innovation in Austria. We have invited him other time, but he was not able, and we are grateful that you made the effort to be today with us. He works in a center that the motto is all innovations are socially relevant. So and especially it works with Manfred because he's an specialist on the social impact, how to minimize and how to overcome the difficulties of the social transitions, and as well on the regional innovation strategies. And he has a very good knowledge as well about the Eastern countries. We have been discussing with Harry in the North Karelia, I think it's the eastern part of the European Union, or very, at least very east. And then we have as well the overall vision from Manfred that is not only Europe for Europe, but as well the other vision from other places. So Manfred, what are your vision as academic of what you have heard today, and how you could help regional practitioners to have more impact in this stakeholders engagement and providing a meaningful economic development, not only economic development, I would like to say. This is my questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Esteban, for the invitation. And that's very kind. I'm happy to contribute today. Well, first, I wanted to say I'm grateful for the citation of Joe Strummer and The Clash. Well, that sounds a bit of the youth, but well, great music anyway. But this citation was really very important, I think. The future is unwritten. And when I saw first the presentation of Steve, I thought, okay, that looks like a kind of foresight process was behind all these developments. And I think this is a very important feature because oh, I see the Clash coming up in the chat. Great. Well, when we develop smart specialization strategies, we usually use this entrepreneurial discovery process also for involving stakeholders and different groups from quadruple, quintuple helix actors. But in foresight processes, it's also very much about involving all different stakeholders and about participation. And but they are more focused on the future development, and that what was one thing that I wanted to ask also Stephen, whether there was a dedicated foresight process behind, and to what extent and what kind of methods were used. On our side, in our research work, we often use foresight approaches, which we just did recently a project for the mission boards for adaptation to climate change. Particularly, we were doing verification of strategies that are now included also in Horizon Europe. And we used the Delphi surveys for this. I got more the impression from Steve's presentation that it was more kind of a road mapping process that was used to outline how to reach future goals, what the what, when, and how. These are topics that are addressed here. So that was a very interesting thing for me. I just will share my screen. I prepared a bit of slides, only very short, also with a reflection on two projects we are involved here at ZSI, where we are dealing with energy transition, which is also very much in the focus of Steve's presentation, as we have seen, and where I highlight the actions that we take for citizen engagement. Just try to share the screen. I hope it's working now. Well, that's what I wanted to...
You have to maximize. Perfect.
Yes, I hope it's working. Yeah, it's fine. Well, the first points are those that I just was discussing a little bit about the foresight issues. When I saw the tools that Steve was presenting, that was very interesting. When, as you rightly mentioned, Esteban, I'm doing a lot of advisory work in Eastern European countries on regional development strategies in Ukraine and Georgia and these kind of countries. And well, some of these tools, of course, that Steve was mentioning are very familiar. And we use these kind of examples also in recommending to these countries. For example, the clusters, the catapult projects that they are using in Scotland or in the UK are very good and interesting example for bringing different actors together around research, business, for common innovation work. So that was also a very interesting feature that we that I have seen and that I wanted to highlight from the presentation of Steve. Then I go into the first project that I wanted to briefly show, and the stakeholder activities that we are doing here. It's the Entrances project funded in Horizon 2020, where we are collaborating with Esteban and the colleagues at ORADA, very in a very nice atmosphere and very successfully. So we are just preparing a meeting, a co-creation meeting at the EU level, but just to develop together with the EU level, but also at the regional level, the transition strategies for coal and carbon regions, how to advance on the energy transition. We don't have Scotland in this project, but we have a UK partner. It's Wales in this case. So with its industrial tradition around steelworks and coal mines, of course, a very interesting case study. And overall, we have 13 case studies that we are covering over Europe, including one in Austria where we are based. And well, this is exactly the questions about stakeholder involvement. How are we going to address this? It's not a very easy thing, I have to say, but okay, we want to try to bring actors from the different stakeholder groups together. We had a rather lengthy and painful discussion how we could categorize different stakeholders. So over all these 13 case studies that we are having, we are collecting stakeholders that we want to involve then in our focus group discussions, in interview methodology and co-creation workshops that we are planning. So it's from a scientific point of view, we need to categorize these stakeholders, what kind of power they have in their individual region, what kind of role they fulfill. So it's quite challenging work that we ask all our partners in the 13 regions to do on the stakeholders. But then we will use this categorization for inviting then the colleagues, the individual stakeholders to our co-creation workshops to discuss with the different actors how we could best address in the future the energy transition and for some it's a coal phase out, so a very painful process in some of the regions, how this could be done better and addressed in the future. So we should generate inputs for practical recommendations for the coal and carbon transition and regional development in our case study regions. So this is what we are doing in this entrances project. And then another project which is called Repeat, which is on responsible research and innovation, and also focused on the energy transition. So here there will be 3 case studies, pilot regions, including Scotland. So it's a bit unfortunate that Steve had to leave. I wanted to highlight it. Yeah. And in this project, it's about transition labs, which will also use co-creation, involvement of different stakeholders, creating together with stakeholders transition pathways and for the energy transition, and coming up with bottom-up solutions, so that as we have seen already in the previous discussion, it's a challenge to involve some of the disadvantaged groups. It's more easier to involve researchers. Business need to see a specific interest, so it is a challenge to be taken up. Huh? In this project, it's operating in the context of smart specialization strategies, and the colleagues, I'm not personally involved in this project, it's colleagues of mine who are doing it. They are aiming for making them also sustainable. So in the longer run, sustainable and supporting the energy transition, and also taking care of responsible research and innovation aspects. Okay, so that's the 2 projects that I wanted to highlight. Thank you. I stop here, not to go too long.
Thank you, Manfred. What I'm going to do is something that maybe is not so clear to do, but is to invite you to take part, if you want, if you are interested on the topic of entrance, which is the social impact on the energy transition. This is very important, especially for those regions who has high intensity use of carbon and they are facing the carbonization process, or for those regions who has mine. We are, as Manfred said, we are organizing a co-creation meeting. It's not an event, it's a discussion meeting, and we have already confirmed all the services of the European Commission. We have 4 different DGs from 7 different services to discuss, not to present in a conference. So if you have some interest on that, even if it is not an open event, conference, and you think that is something that you could contribute to or to have an idea, you are more than welcome to contact us, and we will try to include you there. What we are going to discuss, and we meet with Manfred every week to prepare carefully the event, because we have very high-level representatives, is what is the knowledge gap to provide effective policies for the energy transition. So this is, I started with the last part of these meetings, which are as well miscellanea of announcements. So you are free to tell us and to contact us if you want there, and we will try to bring a place to this co-creation meeting, we call that. So if you don't have any comment, I will continue with the miscellanea. Manfred didn't mention that, but they participate in a very interesting project on responsible research and innovation called TeRRI's. It's because his organization is quite important and big, and TeRRI's has launched that last week their first policy brief, which is done by Stephen Philip with the foundation of the responsible research and innovation, and its application to health industry, which is quite relevant. So for those regional practitioners that are here, is more or less the same people that were in demand project. So it's addressing challenge from health services in order to provide meaningful technologies. So they, in this case, they go more and they use what was there just technology development. Now they use the social responsibility and involvement on the stakeholders. And this first policy brief, I think, is quite relevant. The community, and I'm going to give you 3 or 4 announcements and we finish. The community of responsible research and innovation is these days very busy because it's the final conference of New Horizon. I don't know how to pronounce the New Horizon project, and it's every day. So we are meeting together all the mornings. Today it was the poster session. We have meeting tomorrow and the next week. So the European Commission, and it's another announcement, is going to open the research and innovation days that will, the subscription of the responsible and innovation day that will take place in June. I remember the first time that they organized, it was not possible to register because it was oversubscribed. Now it's going to be online, so I don't think that we will have any issues, but be aware of that is going to open the registration next week. Another announcement is that maybe many of you have failed to apply for the European Week of Regions and Cities. You know, the biggest event for regions and cities to organize workshop and events that takes place always in October in Belgium. Last year was a tremendous success online, and this year have been rejected some of the application. Don't worry, because you could have and could organize a side event for that. That application will finish on the 2 or the 3 of September. So you could recycle that, and we advise you for that. And then we have, and that's my last announcement related to gender. By the way, our meeting on decarbonization and social impact is going to have an issue of gender, because in carbon intensive region is quite relevant. There is the Gender Academy organized on the 31st of May, a very interesting conference. And I told you in previous edition that the Gender Equality European Conference will take place on the 15th of September. This is all from our side, and we will see in 1 month, in June, and we will inform you promptly, and we are going to send to you the presentation that Manfred has provided. I'm sure that he will agree, and Stephen Ingledew. Thank you very much for your participation, and we are quite happy with your presence here, and I wish you a nice afternoon. Thank you very much.